Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Robert Adams, and joining us this evening from the Australian Army is Lance Corporal Emma Carmichael. We warmly welcome the group from the 17th Sustainment Brigade and the group from the 3rd Health Battalion. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of Christian College Geelong from Warn Ponds in Victoria. Australia's Federation Guard is the tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catafalque party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier.
Careful, party! Slow! Party, present arms. Careful, party, reverse. Careful, party, rest on.
If you're able, I now invite you to please stand for the singing of the national anthem.
Careful, party, attention! Careful, party, present arms. party, shoulder, arms. Cavalry party, order, arms.
The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where friends and families could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations over more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Edward Alexander Watherston. Edward Watherston, known as Ted, was born on the 2nd of March 1886 to James and Isabella Watherston of Port Lincoln, South Australia. His grandfather had been appointed overseer of the Aboriginal mission at Punindi, near Port Lincoln, and Ted's father remained in the district as a prominent property owner. Ted grew up on Boston Island, off the coast of Port Lincoln, with 4 brothers and 4 sisters attending the local public school. In 1896, Ted's mother and father got into their dinghy from Boston Island to get to their cutter in the bay. The dinghy was upset by a sudden squall and they both drowned. Many of their children were watching from the beach. Little is known of how the Watherston children managed after the loss of their parents, although they had extended family in the district to help them. They would eventually live all over Australia. Ted remained closest to home, working for the Harbour Trust in Port Pirie. 4 of the Watherston brothers enlisted for service in the Australian Imperial Force shortly after the outbreak of war in 1914. 2 in Western Australia, 1 in New South Wales, and Ted in South Australia. He travelled to Adelaide to enlist in August 1914 and was posted to the 10th Battalion. He would leave Australia for active service 2 months later and spend weeks training in the Egyptian desert. The 10th Battalion was one of the first units ashore at Gallipoli in the early hours of the 25th of April 1915. Ted later wrote to his sister and brother-in-law describing how, excited to finally be on the destroyer on their way, he and his mates went mad, singing, dancing, and carrying on until the officers came down and stopped us and put the lights out. To calm down, they snuck below to the sailors' quarters to smoke until the call came to man the boats. He wrote, "There were bullets flying all round us. The first thing that was done when our fellows landed was load rifles, fix bayonets, charge. It was splendid. We had to charge uphill and the Turks went off for their lives." A few days later, Ted was wounded by Turkish shell fire while advancing up a gully. He wrote, "There were 40 of our brigade knocked in 40 minutes. I went back to the beach where the Army Medical Corps had a dressing shed, and from there went on to one of the transports which were acting as hospital ships." Watherston had been wounded in the forearm and was sent to hospital to England, where it took him several months to recover. He returned to the AAF in January 1916, where it was in Egypt, having evacuated from the Gallipoli Peninsula. The AAF was undergoing a period of expansion and reorganisation, and as part of the process, Ted's younger brother Cyril was transferred to the 10th Battalion to join him. Shortly afterwards, they were sent to France to fight on the Western Front. The 10th Battalion's first major operation on the Western Front came on the 22nd of July 1916, where it took part in the battle that captured the French village of Pozières. Although the 10th Battalion sector was particularly difficult to advance through, it managed to gain part of its objectives, and Lieutenant Arthur Seaforth Blackburn was later awarded the Victoria Cross for his gallantry. However, that same day cost the 10th Battalion significant casualties. Among those who did not return from the front line was Private Ted Watherston, who was posted missing after the battle. There were rumours that he had been taken prisoner by the Germans, but none could be substantiated. The last confirmed sighting of him was at Pozières, when he went with Private Hughes and Private Slater to capture a trench. Both Hughes and Slater were killed. It was not until 1917 that a court of inquiry determined that Private Ted Watherston had also been killed in action on the 23rd of July 1916. He has no known grave. None of the Watherston brothers who went to war lived past 1916. Frank died of wounds sustained at Gallipoli in 1915. Cyril was killed by a shell blast in May 1916, and James was killed a few hundred metres north of Edward at Mouquet Farm in August 1916. Their names are listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Edward Alexander Watherston, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Careful party, shoulder, arms.
If you are able, I now invite you to please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Careful party, present, arms. Careful party, shoulder, arms.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
Careful party, in woods, turn. Careful party, quick, march.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.